Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Food for Thought, Learning from the Best with YMCA Greater Brandywine. I'm Stephanie Stevens. I'm with the Chester County Community Foundation. And I just want to give a few housekeeping items. You'll notice that you were muted as you were let into the room. Today, we have Denise Day and Jim joining us. Karen's going to be introducing them in a second, but I wanted to let you know that at the end of the presentation, we will be doing breakout rooms this time around. So please stay on after the presentation and we'll move you into what we call focus breakout rooms. So you guys can really debrief, learn from each other and ask questions to your fellow staff and board members. If you have any questions, obviously there's the chat box. You can type it in and we do have staff monitoring that. At this point, Karen, take it away.
Thank you, Stephanie. Welcome everybody to the Community Foundation's ongoing Food for Thought series. Delighted when Denise Day said that she would be able to speak about what the Y has been dealing with through COVID, and she brought in Jim Paro, her Senior VP and CIO, to add to the information today. Before we go into the presentation and chat, I'd like to actually also thank our presenting partners and ask you to say a couple of words. We have from the Exton Region Chamber of Commerce, Lori Ryan. Lori, are you there? You want to say anything?
I'm here. Hi, thank you, Karen, and thank you everybody for being on the call. I'm the president of the Exton Region Chamber of Commerce, and we have an incredibly active nonprofit council, and I'm thrilled to be able to continue to partner with Chester County Community Foundation and the YMCA of Brandywine Valley. So thank you for having me here.
Thanks, Lori. And Cheryl, I know you're on vacation, you said, so thank you for joining us and helping us get the word out on these.
Sure, absolutely. So welcome everyone. It's wonderful to see you all again. It's all Zoom faces. Cheryl Kuhn, Southern Chester County Chamber. We're very proud to partner with Chester County Community Foundation, long-term member of the Chamber and good friend and partner, and also with Denise Day of Greater Brandywine, YMCA of Greater Brandywine, and Jim Paro. So we're looking forward to the presentation, hearing what's going on in their world and seeing how we can continue to support you.
Thank you, Cheryl. And I don't know, do we have Dave or Lisa from the Greater Westchester Chamber of Commerce on here yet? I know it's a busy day. Well, we also thank the Greater Westchester Chamber for helping to get the words out. We've got a couple Ys right here in Westchester proper, so it's all fitting as well. And then Ernie, what can you tell us about what Restore Chester County is up to these days and how Restore Chester County can help us, Ernie? Where'd you go? Ernie,
I'm still here. I'm hiding over in the corner, I guess. Restore Chester County continues to upgrade our web page and distribute information across 21 sectors of industry/businesses. We have started a new project that we discussed with the overall team last week, which to come up with a thematic wear the mask concept, which will be rolling out towards month end. So it's a major push on part of the county to have that take place. So that's our big project right now. And other than that, we're just trying to keep up with what's going on.
Thank you for joining us, Ernie, and for making sure this information gets out. Denise and Jim, it is my pleasure that you have been able, you've been through so much since March, as everybody has, but I've been a member of the Y ever since I started as a little kid. Used to teach dance classes at the Y in upstate New York, take my dad swimming at your Ys here in Pennsylvania and in New York State with his dementia and Parkinson's. And when y'all had to close down, boy, did we miss you. You've been doing amazing things very quickly, and I'm glad you can join us today because I know the Y is one of the largest Ys in the Commonwealth, in the country. Some of the small to mid-sized nonprofits are thinking, oh my gosh, if this is going on at the Y, how can I do that? But I've always said you have to learn from the biggest and the best. and then take what works and make it fit your organization. And don't take what doesn't work. Let somebody else make that mistake and learn from it. So thank you for being forthcoming today with what's going on at the Y. And we're looking forward to strength in the days and months ahead. I'm going to toss it over to you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having us and for giving us the opportunity with this invitation. I'm glad to have Jim joining me today. Jim's our Senior VP and Chief Information Officer. And of course, we've got a team of great people here working with us as we navigate this new world, as I would say. I'll be very transparent about where we are and how the impact that COVID has had on our organization. And hopefully, if there's something useful, happy to talk and help anybody, hear from anybody and share anything more along the lines. Making sure everybody understands who we are, the YMCA of Greater Brandywine. We've got 8 locations throughout the county, obviously nonprofit, charitable organization. Our mission is to put Christian principles into practice through programs that build a healthy spirit, mind, and body for all. We make sure that our programs and services are available to everybody by providing financial assistance, and our memberships on a sliding fee scale, income-based membership is what we have. And we make sure that no one's turned away from that inability to, if they have financial issues, so that they can participate. Next, obviously, just like everybody else, we closed on March 16th. With COVID, and right away began communicating and went into the mode of contingency planning and starting to pull levers. Obviously, communication was an important piece and had to begin right away. We reopened on June 26th for our donor members, and I'll kind of explain that here in a little bit. And on on June 29th, we reopened to our membership. And a different fashion. We're not running all of our programs or services, but you will find us operating very safely and with a very clean environment and wearing masks. Everybody's wearing masks at all times and such. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then, of course, right away we went into what are some of the emerging community needs and how can we help? And went viral with a lot of our programs and virtual with a number of things. And Jim will talk about that. Went into food distribution, blood drives. So I'll let him talk about that. But let me give you a little bit more of an idea of who we were pre-COVID. At the end of near the end, I'll show you where we are now, and you'll be able to see the side-to-side comparison. But membership makes up about 60% of our revenue comes from membership. And then we've got program fees and contributions and grants and such. But our bank drafts with our 8 branches would run about $1.7 million a month. And we'd have over 284,000 scans. That's card swipes in a month. And you can figure out how many thousand that is a day. Our membership units were over 22,000 a year prior to this. Almost 22.6 there, and membership about 74,000 people across the county that were members. We had 232 full-time staff. We had 1,500 part-time staff. I think we were the 12th largest employer in Chester County. We had Camper Week enrollment of over 18,000. That's a lot of camper weeks. Over 560 folks in our child care, our early learning centers. Our revenues were almost about $45 million in annual revenues. And we had some nice cash reserves built up over the years, so for rainy days, right? And net with contingency, the way to get that cash reserve is we always budgeted contingency in case there was something that came up. But if we didn't use that contingency, that money was put back and put away. And so that surplus on a $45 million budget, just over 1.5 million. And then we are self-insured for unemployment, and those unemployment costs might be $5,000 a month. We'll come back to these numbers and you'll understand just the impact that COVID has had on us. So with it, obviously knowing that we're going to have our doors closed and being as active as we were and so much coming from membership, we immediately activated levers of protection, which I'm sure most organizations did. Our CFO was very quick as well, and we not sure what would happen. We went ahead and we accessed our line of credit just so that it would be there. 2008 there was a run on money that was of a concern. We have since now returned the line of credit, but because that's obviously hasn't been an issue. We went into layoff mode and had to lay off pretty much all of our workforce because we were closed. We had pay cuts. We implemented pay cuts immediately for C-suite staff. We deferred whatever payments we could, started making phone calls to stop any projects. We were in the middle of a renovation project at the time. We had phase 1, phase 2. We stopped phase 2 as quickly as we could, stopped other projects, canceled orders, any non-priority spending, canceled services. We went down through the budget line by line and pulled every lever that we could, figuring that this was going to be, I think that we initially felt it was going to be a 2 to 3 month. And now, of course, now we're planning that things could look like this for at least another year and have moved into another round of planning. Secured, economized all of our buildings, with pools, you got to keep them filled, but there's certain things you have to do and worry about with the humidification and such, and where you could put temperatures and needing to continue to check on things. Certainly got out communication to our funders, and we asked for different requests, asked to be able to use their support funds differently. Some money may have been for sponsorships of events we were going to have to cancel. So were we going to be able to use the funds for our operations? Our funders were wonderful, and we were really pleased with the support they provided and the latitude that they gave us to utilize the funds as we saw fit. And then a pivot community support, our membership. Initially, we didn't know how long we'd be closed, but with some things coming out, we found that while we were closed, the membership if our membership continued to pay their bank drafts, we would be able to count that as contributions. And so when the CARES Act came out and they increased the contribution level to $300 deductibles and such, we kind of promoted that as well and made sure that our members knew that if they continued to be generous and help support us by allowing the membership to be bank draft, that we would be crediting that as a contribution until we were able to reopen our doors.
Denise, what was the response from members? I mean, about how much of a proportion tended to say, yes, please keep it as a contribution versus stop?
It was wonderful. It started at about 75% of our members continued to do that. So that was, and then as the time would go on, then that started to drop. And before we reopened, I think we were still at about 60% of our members that were continuing their bank draft. So that made an enormous difference. That was, some wise chose just to stop all the bank drafts, and that as they are really hurting as a result of that. So our marketing team did a phenomenal job getting the word out. We did robocalls. We did everything. We sent, if we didn't have somebody's email address or phone number, we sent stuff in the mail to make sure our members clearly understood what their options were with their membership. And then we had a number that put their membership on hold, no cost, just put it on hold. And then we had some that did terminate their memberships as well, but it was a pretty small number. So we were very pleased and, you know, thankful and so grateful to our members.
Yeah, that's great news.
Yeah. We had to move all of our staff to telecommuting and implemented Microsoft Teams within days, and then started to move toward virtual. And I'll let Jim talk about that all in a moment. I'm going to let him talk now and talk about what we did with our community needs.
Yeah, so, you know, when we closed in March, it was definitely critical that we work with the community, assess community needs, see where we could help. The Y is all about helping folks. And so we were able to leverage the relationships that we had and really take, you know, those relationships across Chester County and leverage them to meet community needs where it was important to do that. So each branch worked with their contacts. What we really learned was that initially essential worker childcare was important, and that was really through our contacts at the hospitals. And so we really worked regionally at our Westchester and Jennersville branches, being in the closest proximity to the hospitals, to run that emergency childcare. We had some demand, but not as much as we thought. You know, I think all of this COVID response is learning along the way. And so, you know, you try things and you see if they work, and if not, you know, you continue to pivot. So, you know, we had some folks use emergency childcare, but what we mostly found was that, especially early on in COVID, people either weren't comfortable sending their kids in right away, or they had so many people working from home that they had family members to take care of their little ones. Food distribution became critically important. We worked with the food bank to identify that need. And because we had all this space, you know, we were closed to members, and we had these great buildings strategically placed throughout the county. And so we were able to leverage those buildings to do emergency food distribution. Really became volunteer driven, which was amazing. So we were able to bring members in and folks from the community who wanted to volunteer and help with that food distribution. They were able to sort and package food, and we were able to schedule deliveries to folks in need. And that's really stuck. So while essential worker childcare, we didn't see the need right away, food distribution we continue to do today. And so that's a need that's been ongoing, and we see will continue for a while as well. And then the other item the other community need that really bubbled up to the surface was blood drives. In March, when folks closed, the Red Cross saw a lot of cancellations of blood drives. And so we were able to work with you know, our facilities folks and our safety and risk team, as well as the Red Cross, to determine how we could safely provide blood drive space and continue to do blood drives. And we had tremendous response, hundreds of folks donating blood. And again, kind of taking the regional approach, you know, where the Red Cross needed it, we were able to meet that need. So, you know, really great community needs that we were able to meet. In addition to the in-person, you know, and kind of what we could do in our facilities still, online became critical. You know, how do we engage with members who can't come into the Y since we're closed? And so we really kind of took the opportunity to try some new things and to start small and build upon it. And so we continue today to offer wellness classes. We had social support through senior kind of coffee hours that folks could dial in and join Zoom meetings and chat with and continue those relationships that they had built at the Y. Family fun through story time that we had each day, as well as our environmental education center at Upper Mainline Y ran a March Animal Madness tournament and kind of mimicked the March Madness basketball tournament, and that was a big hit as well. They had kind of animals face off against each other in a tournament style.
I missed that.
Yeah, that was great.
I missed that.
Yeah. And so that's been great. It's been going well. And again, we kind of learned as we went and took it small and moved through step by step in that process. And that continues today.
Hey, Jim, were any of those things revenue generating, or they're all virtual and free?
Yeah, all virtual and free right now. We're starting to pivot some of the virtual offerings to members only to continue to enhance that membership and drive value of that membership. But really, we see it as a community response, just like we saw with the blood drives and the food distribution. You know, Chester County was in need. People were stuck at home, and how can we respond and help out? And so we were able to do that. And you know, kind of Denise alluded to it, it was really through the, you know, the generosity of our members continuing their memberships as donations, which allowed us to do some of these things.
Thank you.
Yeah. Communication, also critical when we were closed. Communication is always important, but you know, things were happening so quickly, so rapidly. We have an amazing marketing and communications team, and they were really able to jump right in and help us pivot a little bit and kind of carve out and do some new things from a communication standpoint. So identifying all our key stakeholders that normally would have been communicated with through regular meetings or events, and how do we talk to those folks now that you know, schedules are up in the air, and especially early on when we didn't know you know, when we would be able to kind of get back to business as usual. And so leveraging some of the tools that we already had through Constant Contact, and we started to heavily leverage Teams. We've done town halls with staff, with board, and those have worked really well. And, you know, a lot of it is around sharing the good work that we're doing, you know, requesting things that we need, volunteers, food donations, you know, as well as, you know, continue to communicate with our staff, both the staff who were laid off and furloughed and the ones who were still working for us. And so that became a huge piece of what we did and what we had to learn to do better during the shutdown. I think Denise is going to talk about assistance.
So obviously, Patty Campbell and our mission advancement team started working on looking for assistance and COVID relief, and we were able to find some funds and get some grant funding there. So we were very pleased with that. The United Way helped us with some of the monies for the food distribution, and then we were able to get some of the other COVID relief. But when it came to the big federal CARES Act, which was giving the majority of the relief, what most people don't know is that the Y was not eligible for PPP money. And so that has made it very difficult. So the CARES Act had some things that were beneficial. We got some relief because we're self-insured for unemployment. So we got a 50% break on that, which is significant. And we're hoping that there'll be further legislation that may make that go to 100%. That would be tremendous support and relief for us. But the PPP money that everybody else is talking about and how that was able to help them with payroll and keep folks on, we were not eligible for, because we had over 500 employees, full-time equivalent employees. So we had to focus and continue to focus on sustainability strategies and things that we could do there. I don't know if I went one, two more, but yeah. So we converted the membership dues to donations, as we talked about. We restructured our staff and we really centralized a number of services in as much as we could. So we really went to Team YGBW. We've always been Team YGBW, but looking at more of a universal countywide approach with our staffing and our structures and the efficiencies we could gain versus local staffing. So we kind of centralized our Group X and centralized, you know, some of our hiring processes and a number of things. Started planning for a phased reopening, and that kept getting pushed and pushed, and but implemented new policies and procedures. Jim will talk in a moment about, you know, just some of the health and safety protocols like everybody else, but with working with kids and families and getting folks back in with childcare and camp. We've been doing, our team has done a tremendous job, and we kind of know how to do it. So we know what the schools are getting ready to go through, but we're very proud of how we've been able to handle that with the kids. But so communicating those health and safety precautions. And then as we did reopen, we have provided a membership discount because not everything is reopened. Child Watch is only at 1 or 2 branches, and that's very limited that it's being used. Our pools are back open. We're trying to limit our locker rooms. And then there's a number of programs that we're just not comfortable providing yet at this time. But our keys to success, like many people have heard, and is pivot has been one of our most favorite words. being adaptable, things being fluid, and certainly having this culture of flexibility. So being quick to pull the levers and implement on things. It just really was amazing of how quickly the staff got the virtual offerings up and running, the Microsoft Teams, and working remotely and such. So Jim will talk just briefly here about our health and safety protocols and just how far we've gone to make sure everybody's safe.
And safety is always important at the Y, but this is a much different environment that we live in today. Really what we started with was a pandemic plan, and it's about 100 pages now, and it covers all of our program areas and response plans for if there's COVID positive cases, how to handle communication, who to work with. It's really been a living document and something that has paid dividends as we worked through that. And really it was looking at all our operations. And so everything from facilities and HVAC units and how we change those, and what's COVID appropriate and not COVID appropriate these days. So examples like no water fountains, but bottle fillers. And one of the things that's been most challenging is that it seems that every time, we learn a little bit about the virus as this goes. And so what we did a week ago or 2 weeks ago, it might not necessarily be what we continue to do. And so that's been challenging, and that goes back to communication. How do we communicate to parents and members about what the expectations might be and how they change? We try to follow guidance, Chester County Health Department, CDC, Department of Education. We have a lot of experts that we're able to lean on and help guide us. And so that's worked really well. And we've also, been able to help parents understand. I think that's, we've seen some of that as the schools reopen, where we ran, webinars for parents and explained to them what camp's going to look like with the new procedures, or what childcare is going to look like with the new procedures. And so some of the parents who have been using our services really since June now know what school might look like, or what the learning centers that we're going to be running here in the fall will look like. And so that's been helpful as well.
I have 2 follow-up questions for you on this page. Can you talk about air filtering units adjusted for freshest air turnover? There's been a lot of talk back and forth about air conditioning and what's the latest COVID research on that spread. What's the talk this week on air filtering and air conditioning in offices and things like that?
Yeah, so some of it is really just, what can we do that it may help and that, might, and it's not going to negatively impact us necessarily. So I think that we tend to be cautious about things. And so when we read guidance that, adjusting outside airflow into the building could help, especially as we reopened wellness floors and had people working out and things like that, we made those changes. We talked to our facilities folks and spoke to our vendors and kind of ran through, what impact this might have. And so, we're not the experts. We don't know whether or not, and as studies continue to come out, we learn more. So, I couldn't tell you exactly what the information is, but when we looked at it, we said, this really couldn't hurt. And so let's do it. And that way there, we're being as safe as possible.
Okay. And the other big question that always comes up, the masks and the sanitizers, what do you do with non-compliers? Do you shoot them at dawn? How do you monitor that?
Yeah, it's a constant struggle for staff. We have a lot of folks who, are really great with the requirements, and then we have a very few set of folks who struggle with it a little bit more. And so we work with folks, and try to remind them. And eventually, if obviously if they're not willing to comply, then we'll ask them to come back another time and maybe take it a step further if we need it. But we try to be really understanding. It's new for everybody, and wearing a mask is not something that people are used to. We're also able to wear face shields. That's part of the governor's order as well. So mask or face shield. And so we're able to do that accommodation with somebody. And so we have some members who do work out with face shields rather than face masks, and that's worked out well too.
Mm-hmm. And the kids seem to be really good with masks. Is that true? Kids
are great. Yep. No issues with the kids in camp and childcare. They wear their masks all day. They don't seem to have an issue with it. They take them off to eat and take naps, but they've had 0 issues with it. They've been really great.
Okay. I'm delighted to hear that about the Y membership. Yeah. People get it. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else around health and safety? like I said, we're going overboard and doing everything that we can and trying to take it to the nth degree. Like the parents at camp and childcare, they don't get out of their cars. The parents aren't coming into our buildings at all. We're picking the kids up and we're doing temperature checks on everybody that comes into our buildings, the temperature checking the kids and doing all the screenings and such. So it's been good.
So Martina wants to know more about sanitizing. What about sanitizing, Martina? Speak up.
Do you want to take that, Denise, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can. I mean,
Okay.
we've got, we use BNC 15 and we use what's the other one?
Virex.
But yes, Virex, and we sanitize all the time, every few hours. We have the sanitizer available as well, but what we have is these electrostatic sprayers that come in and like the little sprayer guns and, you know, go over all the equipment and everything. And we do everything nightly as well. So.
Little
And our
power
staff,
washers.
our staff, you know, their jobs have really changed, you know, now that we've reopened, and it's a lot of cleaning, really front line now, much less in your office and more, you know, out there and making sure things are running well and cleaning all the time and, you know, really making sure member safety is our top priority.
Thank you. This
Cleaning
really
is everybody's job.
yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, Martina, keep going.
Yeah, this is very helpful. Thank you. And so is it a lot of like wiping and the sprayers you mentioned?
Mhm.
Do any UV lighting? I'm just asking because whatever you've done, I think it's wonderful to hear it from you or share it with other organizations where we are trying still to keep up.
Yeah, we are not doing anything with the UV lighting. We've been, you know, we've read about it. Our senior director of facilities is on top of, you know, keeping up with anything with protocols or anything that we're learning or anything that we're even learning across the country. We're on the phone regularly with other YMCA associations, some that opened before we did because of what state they may be in and such. But we are not doing anything with the UV lighting or the UV at this time. You know, more of it is airborne from what they're saying, but we are doing all the sanitizing and, you know, and just wiping down constantly.
There's another question in our chat room from Melissa. Can you talk about the protocols when you realize that either employer members have been exposed to COVID positive individuals? How do you realize it, and then what do you do?
Everybody's screened when they come in, and if somebody, part of the screening questions, have you been exposed? And if somebody's been exposed, then they need to quarantine, and so they would not be allowed in our facility if they've been exposed to somebody that is COVID positive, okay, or if they are themselves have tested. If we've had a case, you know, so we've got protocols for if somebody's, you know, we've had situations where our staff have been able that have had to stay home for the 14 days because someone in their family was positive. So then they have to quarantine. We call the CDC, we call the county health department and make sure that they're notified and follow all their protocols and such. Same thing if we have anybody, if we've had any exposure in a classroom, you know, we have kids work in groups of 12. They're kind of like their own little family unit. And if there's anything that happens there, then only those kids would be affected versus a camp of 200. It would just be the 12 kids. And then if somebody would, if one of those children would test positive, then the others would have to quarantine as well.
Why'd you pick 12? Why is 12 your magic number for bubbles?
That's the ratio of 1 to 12 for a staff to student, staff to camper ratio, or staff to child ratio.
Okay. All right, so it's a small enough bubble to be able to quarantine if needed.
Yep. And we do follow CDC guidelines on those things too.
Melissa, do you have other questions related to protocols? Okay.
Nope, I'm good, thanks.
All right, thank you. What else, Denise and Jim?
So let me show you the impact that COVID has had on our organization. I'm hitting the button and it's not going forward.
Well, don't hit it too much because it'll hit the end.
Okay.
Stephanie, what do you think?
I'm going to go in and,
Gonna take it back, Denise.
Yep.
See if we can find it.
Okay.
Hmm.
So what I'm about to show you is the impact of COVID. You saw, or we talked about the numbers of what the organization looked like pre-COVID. And I'll give you where we are now or where we anticipate being at the end of 2020 in a moment.
she should have control again.
Okay. And the arrow is not,
You know what? I'll move it forward for you. Sorry about the technical glitch.
there's only 1 or 2 slides left. So,
And this is the stunning one. So
And
you're
this
just building up. This is the stunner.
the slide that will probably shock most people.
Yeah.
So I told you that our monthly bank drafts were 1.7 million. Currently, they're running about $860,000 a month instead of 1.7. Our average monthly scans are at 62,000 for the month. And that's about, our usage is about averaging about 25% of what the normal usage would be at this time. Our units, again, then obviously are much less as well. Our full-time staff has been cut by over 30%. We have 161 full-time staff versus 232. And our part-time staff, and this is with our camp, and we did open 3 outdoor pools. So this is normally a bigger time for us for staff, our number of staff. We have 573 part-time staff. Our camper enrollment weeks are less than half at about 7,000 versus 18. We've got 229 in our early learning centers. And at the end of the year, instead of being a $45 million operation, we are anticipating to be about $25 million. And that's running true across the country for other larger Ys as well. They're looking at the same. Our cash reserves, we've been burning them through there a bit, and we look to have about 1.5 or hopefully a little bit more than that at the end of the year, but that's our current projection. And then obviously the swing of where we would be from a surplus is we look to be down 3.6 million at the end of the year instead of up. And our unemployment costs are running about $500,000 monthly. We're reimbursed 50% after 90 days. So if we can get the 100%, that will make a big difference. Other than that, once we get reimbursed, and now that law did change, so we are happy about that. We don't have to put the money out and then get it reimbursed. It's running about 250 or a little bit higher than that on a monthly basis for unemployment cost. So without qualifying for that PPP, you can just see the impact, unfortunate impact that COVID has had on us as a nonprofit here in Chester County. So
How do you deal with that kind of change so quickly? I mean, like, it's a roller coaster to see that happening.
yeah. Well, I think that's where I go back to. We have tried to pull those levers quick and not, you'd like to be able to sit around and say, well, I wonder, and maybe, but we just started pulling and trying to be safe along those lines of doing what we could as quick as we could, because if you wait too long, obviously that's costing you as well. And so we're in a constant mode of contingency planning, quite frankly. We've got plans B, C, and we're probably on C. We've got D, E, and F already, kind of keyed up if we need to. And, I think the interesting thing that, as I've said to a number of my board volunteers, is trying to understand how much defense you play and how much offense you play. All right. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. We've been on the defense, and now we are preparing and have been moving into being on the offense. What are those emergent? You can move the next slide if you'd like. What are those emerging community needs? Because the community needs are changing and there are more community needs, they're going to be different. What do we need? How do we need to look at this? We're looking at regional approaches. The way our branches are very strategically placed, I would say. So Kennett and Jennersville are probably, 10 to 15 minutes from each other. Our Lionville and our Brandywine branches are probably 10 to 15 minutes from each other as well. How can we work together to look at to provide complementary services versus duplicating, looking for partners and people to collaborate with. So how do we complement those services? And then those emerging community needs, you've probably been hearing about our learning centers. So we know that parents are at wit's end trying to figure out what to do with what's going on with schools. So we'll be providing learning centers, and the registration for that is going very well right at our branches. So we're kind of turning our branches into learning centers and taking as much space as possible to be able to bring in children, keep them in their pods of 12 with all the social distancing and everything we've learned through camp and childcare, putting that into this virtual learning environment, and for us to be able to provide that support for parents and families. And when we surveyed, we've been doing a lot of surveying. I think Jim mentioned that we want to act with data and hear from our members in the community. The response was overwhelming about the need for the learning centers, but the three things that parents wanted is they wanted the social engagement for their children. They wanted the physical activity and to get them out away from the screens when they could, and then they wanted the help and support for learning. And so we think our branches and facilities can really provide that a unique experience and a nice safe environment for us to meet those needs. The virtual studio now is a regular part of what we do. We have actually kind of built the virtual studio and have our own little recording setup, and our instructors have been phenomenal and done a great job. So that's just going to be a new way of business going forward. And we're looking at what does that mean and what does the next, as we said before, now we're kind of looking at what's the next year hold, because we think it's most prudent to think about this, not in, the next 2 months or 3 months, but we need to plan that this could be our reality before usage numbers come back up and such. It could be a reality for up to a year. So that's got to affect the decisions that we make. And we're even looking, from the sustaining to reimagining is some ideas around governance and how to utilize our volunteers mostly more. And we've got a new committee that starts Friday calling Reimagining the Y, working with our volunteers to talk about what this new world looks like and
what are going to be the opportunities for us as a Y. And then the last slide shows. Wait, hold on, we got questions for you. Don't go for the last slide yet. Back up. It's okay. Amazing. It really is. Okay, so a couple of questions for you. The community needs learning centers. I think I remember the day we talked, you were sent out a little Survey Monkey thing and you thought you'd get a few responses. You got how many responses? And just from a Survey Monkey survey?
We sent a Survey Monkey survey out, and within 2 hours, we had over 565 responses, letting us know that, yes, they definitely had needs and were worried about what they were going to do if the children were going to go virtual. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Cheryl says that she's been seeing a lot of great posts on local message boards about the learning centers, but several parents are saying they're full. So what to do? Are they full, and what to do?
They're not full. We have updated those numbers. The initial numbers we put in, we were still checking on rooms and how many rooms, and we have to get them licensed and stuff. So we've updated our numbers. They are not full. And we still have opportunities. So,
are you using only Y spaces for the learning centers, or are you looking for other spaces to partner on?
Right now, we're just using our Y spaces because again, we go into, we're trying to get into the schools, but the schools, since they're going virtual, most likely they're not going to have us come into the schools. So we're utilizing our facilities, which does give us some nice opportunity to think about the kids having a chance to jump in the pool or, run around a gym too. So right now, that's what we're using. We've talked about our upper mainline facility. Their numbers are pretty high, and there we might need to look outside. But we think that we can handle quite a few, and we're going to first stay in our facilities before we look outside, just because of licensing requirements and having the appropriate space.
Okay. Okay. Now you talked about governance a bit, and there's a question from Jim about as far as the drop-in reserves, governance restrictions, rules that might come into play.
Well, our finance committee's been very involved and very much a part of the planning of what we've done. And so that everything still meets within, anything that we would do with endowments or anything like that, that we're still meeting our policies as it referred to there. But drop-in reserves, it is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And you said that you're using volunteers to help with your reimagining?
Yeah, so we've got a committee of volunteers across our association. Each branch is represented with at least 2 volunteers, and 2 of our association corporate board volunteers will be driving that process as well. And just really, what are people seeing? Bringing, a lot of different expertise and backgrounds together to think about reimagining what the Y is going to look like a year from now, and what are those new emerging community needs, and how can we help, and what voids do we fill, and how we continue to work on not only sustainability but relevance and our mission.
Beautiful. Thank you. And now, what's next?
Next is our Here for Good campaign. Besides reimagining and looking at our programming, we will be going out soon here before the end of this month with a We're Here for Good campaign, because as we said, a lot of folks weren't aware of just maybe how hard we've been hit, and that we didn't receive federal funding, and to request support for operations, as well as for us to continue to offer financial assistance. We are raising funds right now for financial assistance for the learning centers. As you can imagine, parents are beside themselves. They weren't planning to have to pay for some form of, if you will, child care or learning center. And so it's certainly a hardship for many. So we're looking at funding so that we can help offset those costs.
Okay, good. Good. It's amazing.
That's kind of the story of where we've been and where we're going, and continuing to pivot.
And an amazing, amazing journey. Incredible. Thank you for being so transparent about what's been going on. Like I said, it feels to me like you really mobilized so quickly, and to see what the impact is with such quick mobilization is hard, but at the same time, it's the reality. It helps other nonprofits to be able to kind of benchmark against that, and get some reality checks, I think, too. I've been sort of taking over the Zoom group chat questions throughout. Are there other questions that people have at this point? Cheryl wants to know. Understanding how things can change, what are your thoughts about bringing staff back, even close to pre-COVID levels?
We've really tried to be transparent and upfront and honest with our staff, those that are still working, but or have been brought back, but those that we had to lay off. We held a lot of town halls. Every 2 weeks we'd hold a town hall to let everybody know what was going on, what we were working on, what we were hoping for. And we've said all along that it's going to be a long time for us to recover. And I wish I could say that we're going to be able to get back to those levels, but I don't see it anytime soon. Again, our usage numbers are down, the demand is down. While we believe, and I think everybody that's come in, we've had wonderful response from our members that have been in about how safe it is, how clean it is, how happy they are with the procedures and such. But there are certainly folks that are high risk and understandably so, that are not ready to come back yet. And so, and same thing within our program. So until our usage and our programming can get back to those levels, we're just not able to bring staff back.
Mm-hmm. It will be useful, I think, over time to see some kind of a trend graph on people coming back to kind of see how that is really, is it, you know, is it a nice curve? Is it bumpy? What does it relate to? Age, demographics?
Yeah, you know, we follow usage daily. We have a daily report that comes out each evening and such, and it is definitely slowly going up. So we're pleased with that. And some branches, the usage is coming back a little higher than others, and so it's going in the right trend. So we're happy about that, but it is slow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Thank you very, very much. Steph, do you want to put us in the little chat rooms for a few minutes in case people have individual small things to tap? What do you think?
Absolutely. So at this point, I'm actually going to turn things over to Beth Kralish. She's going to move everybody into different chat rooms. There will be
Denise,
a
Jim,
CCCX
and
staff member monitoring those,
Okay.
helping along with the conversations.
So you just do 5 minutes and then back?
We can do that, yes.
Okay. Just for some quick questions. And Beth K, while you're doing that, I just want to thank you, Denise and Jim and Patty, for getting this information out, for all the pivoting, for the food distribution, and blood drives. I mean, that's masterful stuff. And my neighbors love your virtual learning. That's true. So, and now the learning centers. Thank God you're able to pivot quickly and fill in that need. So,
well, I
do a few.
I just do want to say we are here to help. And so, you know, we want to partner, we want to collaborate and with other nonprofits or however we can help the community. You know, we had reached out early on to Chester County Health Department and Jeannie and said, if there's some way that we can help, just let us know. We have facilities and we're here for good. So.
Yeah, it's a great campaign. You are.
All right, if you're all ready, I'm going to assign some breakout rooms and I'll bring you back here in 5 short minutes, if it works. Here we
Thank
are.
you, Beth. Yeah, thank you very much. I think the breakouts helped us for a couple minutes to see how people are, what points people picked up pretty quickly, and just get a little bit introductions about even what's going on in your own backyard. So even 5 minutes is better than nothing. So I do appreciate that time. I'm glad everybody could join us today. This is available online if you want to send it out. We'll be sending links out to everybody. So please keep healthy, keep doing such amazing things. Chin up. Let's keep pivoting and being flexible and resilient. And I do thank the Y, Denise and Jim, for being so incredibly transparent today. Let's go out there and let's keep up the good work. All right. So we are doing this for good forever, right?
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
having me.
Thanks,
everybody.
Karen.
Thank you so much. Very good.
Thank
Be
you.
well.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.